Caplor House, what is it? So it's an organizational effectiveness and leadership development model. And as Lorna laid out at the beginning, you know, many of the architects of it are on this call today, and it's been going for many years now, maybe almost 10 years. And, you know, we've been using it a lot with our partners. So it has a sustainable roof, 4 rooms, and a solid foundation. And each of these 4 rooms allow us to better understand our behavioural preferences and those of others. And the solid foundation is all around learning. So that's really crucial. And we always sort of start with learning. Learning is the foundation to everything. And the sustainable roof, we like to consider things around sort of people, the planet, prosperity in terms of economic understandings as well. But can anyone just shout out, maybe unmute yourself, can anyone remember what are the 4 rooms of the Caplor House? Or put in the chat.
Kitchen.
Yes, fantastic. Kitchen.
Living room.
Yeah,
Family room. Family room.
Yeah, thank you.
Family house.
Library.
Yeah. Pardon, Rupa, what was it?
Library.
The library, fantastic. One more.
Observatory.
Observatory.
Fantastic. Thanks, Esther and Rupa. Great. So we have the kitchen, the library, the family room, and the observatory. And I'm just going to sort of talk through each of them a little bit more to help your understanding. So each of these rooms are sort of areas, sort of preferences, as we said, and particularly around leadership preferences. So I'm just going to talk through some of the strengths of each of the rooms. So the observatory, we have a telescope in that room. The observatory is all about sort of looking to the future. So people that have this as a preference are normally quite visionary, they're quite flexible, they can be quite creative and imaginative, and they can quite like risks. They're often quite up for change because they can really see the potential sort of future that it could bring. People in the family room, the people that have that as their first preference, they tend to be really motivated by relationships. So people is really important in this room. And these types of people are often very engaging, collaborative, passionate and accommodating. So they really want to kind of take people along with them and make sure people are feeling okay. And so they can be really helpful sort of team members in terms of sort of bringing everyone together. In the kitchen, as you can see there, there's sort of a bowl, and the connotations of the kitchen is all about sort of recipes and kind of, you know, that's not often the sort of center of the household in terms of getting things done. So people that have this preference, they often quite like results. They can be quite organized and quite systematic, and, you know, that they can be quite diligent. They sort of follow through on plans. I myself quite like being in the kitchen, and if you look at my notebook now, you'd see many to-do lists. I love a to-do list, so you know, it's all about sort of action in that space. And then we have the library, and as you might imagine from the pictures of a library, that idea of kind of being a bit more analytical and rational, you know, doing the research, getting the evidence before making decisions. So they're helpful in terms of being quite balanced and inquisitive and maybe a bit more objective. So these are some of the strengths of the rooms, and I'll come on a bit later on to kind of explain, you know, that we're not just one of these. But hopefully, as you read this through, either if you've done it in the past or if you're just hearing this for the first time now, you can start to sort of think, oh yeah, that room really sounds quite like me. So then the challenges, what sort of challenges do people sort of face with different preferences? So if you have an observatory preference, you might really fear a sort of lack of purpose. And maybe your sort of imagination and your sort of future thinking might mean that you might not have an adequate follow through, or you might be idealistic, or maybe lacking some pragmatism because you can just see all these possible things, but maybe not sort of how to sort of follow through with them. In the family room, people that have this preference might fear a lack of acknowledgement, and you know, they might, because they want everyone to be happy, they might avoid conflict, they might be impulsive or talk too much or overly expressive. Often people in the family room, you know, are really caught up with feelings and emotions, which can be really fantastic, but in other situations, maybe not so helpful. In terms of the kitchen, people here that they fear a loss of control. They could maybe be quite demanding. They maybe are resistant to change. Can be confrontational. These are just, obviously not all of these will appear for everyone of that type, but it's just to try and get a sense and help you particularly get a sense of where your sort of preferences lie. And then finally, people in the library, they really sort of fear chaos. And some challenges with those types of people might be that they're a bit sort of academic and overcritical and perfectionist. And I think with some of the, you can always see the useful sides of some of these, being academic could be really helpful, but for other people that might be, might cause clashes. So the main sort of thing with this model is to show that we can all be in all of these places. We may have a first preference, and we may really, feel that, oh yeah, I'm particularly a family room person, that really suits my strengths. But actually, you can work in the kitchen, you can work in the library, and you can work in the observatory. And, we really encourage each and every one of you to really try your hardest to sort of move around the house and see things from different perspectives. I think why this tool is so helpful is that it does kind of encourage you to sort of see maybe the same challenge, but from 4 different kind of lenses. And we'll sort of talk a bit more about that as we go on and how that links to coaching. And there's so many layers to this model. Is at one level, it's very simple, and we try and keep it as simple as possible. Hopefully the language of the house is quite universal and cross-cultural. We've worked with it in many different contexts and countries. But at the same time, it gets a lot deeper. Lorna spoke about Clive here with the neuroscience. There's also lots of interesting elements to it in terms of the diagonals of the rooms. You might start to notice some tensions that might be caused between library people and family room people, or kitchen people and observatory people. So just sort of having an awareness of where you sit, where your colleagues sit, where your family sit, that can be really helpful in terms of thinking about sort of relationships.